Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Luca Motel and I'm a traditional artist based in Wisconsin, USA. Today we're doing MerMay Day 29, which is Mimic. To start off, I'm masking off all the teeth and spikes and the eyes with Pebeo masking fluid. I'm using the masking fluid pen, which is just the masking fluid in a pen form, which gets really finite detailed, or finite, I don't think that's the right word, really small details, let's just go with that. Now I'm painting the background with a color, I think it's, Weathered Rose by Masha, Masha's Watercolors. It's a handmade watercolor paint, and it granulates really well, like really pretty multicolor granulation between like a pinkish reddish color and a brownish red color. Kind of like a pinkish purple, I guess. I'm using a brush by Polina Bright. It's a mop brush and it has a really nice fine point, but it is large, so it can cover a lot of area, but also get into those little tiny ones. I'm doing a second layer now because watercolor dries lighter, so I want it to be a little darker than it was. So yeah, this is a mimic, and I don't know if you know what a mimic is or not. If you're a fantasy nerd, you probably do. If not, you probably don't. A mimic is just a monster that can take the form of other things. It usually takes the form of like a treasure chest or a wardrobe or something man-made like that, but they can take the forms of like creatures, at least in my mind they can. There's no real specific rules for mimics. Unless you're playing something like D&D, in which there are rules. But we're not playing D&D here, we're making a fantasy mermaid. And I just love mimics. They're my favorite creature, or monster type I guess I should say, next to Dragon Quest slimes, which are just peak design. I love them so much, they're adorable, and they're funny. And if you don't know Dragon Quest or Dragon Quest slimes, you should look them up because they're great. And yeah, so let me know, do you know what mimics are? Do you like mimics? What's your favorite monster type? I guess dragons would really be my favorite, but I don't consider them a monster, I consider them a creature. But a lot of like rule books for tabletop games would definitely consider them monsters, or even video games. Not me though. They're creatures. So here I'm just painting in the skin and adding some shadows to it. And I paint the tail green later because I wanted this to be like a traditional, stereotypical mermaid, you know, green fishtail. Because a lot of fish are green. I wanted it to be like a stereotypical one because it's a mimic. It tends to mimic like ordinary things, I guess, rather than more, what's the word, like rare things. So yeah, here I'm starting with the fin and then going into the rest of the tail. And I go over this with a darker green because I didn't like how light this was, how yellow it was. Here I am going over with that darker green, just avoiding the mouth areas. I'm really loving this renaissance of like tabletop gaming and video gaming and just nerd fantasy stuff in general. I grew up being a fantasy nerd, and it's really nice to see it coming back around and not being as ostracized as it used to be. And now I'm painting in those mouths. I really struggled with the color for this because it at first blended too much in with the background, but then I added more and more red, and I think it works out well in the end. Now, I don't know why mimics tend to have like random mouths in random places and spikes all over when they're not in their regular like mimic form, when they're revealing their monster form, but I just think it's cool and neat and interesting. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's a fantasy creature, it doesn't have to me anyways. I know there's a lot of sticklers for like, oh, it needs to be anatomically correct, it needs to look right, it needs to make sense. No, not me. I don't like that. I like nonsense. And there I painted in the hair and like, I guess the gums for the teeth that are in the hair. And now I'm just adding some scale textures. I used a granulating color for the tail, and it looks really good. I think it adds some texture to it that looks kind of like scales, especially towards the bottom. Now I'm adding in the hair strands. Which was a little confusing how to do that around the mouth area, but I think I made it work. And then I added a curl that looked too much like a G. It really annoys me. I'm just darkening some of the skin shading because I didn't think it was dark enough. Now it's time to remove all the masking fluid and work on the teeth and spikes. And then after that, it's highlights and outlines, and then it's all done. But this is really fun, just bringing it to life with like adding the eye color and the teeth shading. I was debating adding like drippy, slimy highlights to be like drool, but in the end I didn't do that. I don't know, I thought it might be too much. Maybe it wouldn't have been, but I don't know, let me know what you think. Do you think it would have been too much? Do you think it's fine how it is? So yeah, if you remember from yesterday's video, if you watched that, I painted my OC Cecil, who is a mimic, who was meant to be a mimic knight, but I really liked his humanoid form. So I keep drawing him in that instead of his knight form, so he's not really a mimic knight anymore, but yeah, if you can tell, I love mimics. I have quite a few OCs, but right now Cecil is my current favorite, and I'm playing him for a tabletop RPG with my partner, who made their own, I don't know what to call it, like tabletop game essentially, like rule book. I mentioned it in the last video, but I'll mention it again. It's called Rats, Role-Playing Above Tactics, and it's meant to be more about the role-playing than like combat, because D&D is very combat heavy, and other such games. But yeah, now I'm just adding all the highlights, and then that'll bring this to a close. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you like mimics or other monsters. Let me know if you know Dragon Quest and love the slimes, because oh my god, I love them so much. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you again. Hope you enjoyed. And bye-bye.